Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Crime Centric. This being a show where I talk about TV shows that are crime dramas. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the season 1 finale, maybe just straight up finale of The Dinner Table Detective. Regardless, a great episode. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. So, as I was saying, it's unclear whether or not this is like a finale or just a season finale. I'll probably label it as a season finale for now, and if enough time passes with any conversation about where the future of the anime goes, then I can always change the title later. So it's nothing that has to be fully set in stone. But anyway, getting into the episode, we're picking up where last episode left off, where we found out that was the Samasurma. God, I'm butchering the family's name. But basically, Miyuki got kidnapped. She got dropped off for cram school, but then got told by the school, like, yeah, she never showed up. And eventually they got a notice from, like, a blackmailer being like, yo, you need to pay, was it 50 mil, I think, this time? But we find out from the mom that she's been blackmailed 3 times prior and has had to pay a total of nearly 10 mil to this kidnapper because they have some dirt on her. Because it seems like to basically make some deals happen, she's kind of had some not so favorable, they had to do some not so, like, you know, I guess schmooze over some politics. Now, I don't know if it's like she had some affair things or whether it's just kind of like hey, you wink, nudge some people just to make some deals happen. Either way, she's being blackmailed for it. So, obviously, for Reiko, the immediate suspect is Teruya, because it's like, well, he has motive against his family. He was after their wealth, but that all went kablooey after, you know, the case in universe, which was a month ago, but obviously the events of last episode kind of made that all go away. Because I was curious if this would tie into, like, the last case or not, and whether or not that family would get brought into it, but I guess it's like they wouldn't have any motive in this situation, considering, like, it is Teruya who's at fault for that situation playing out the way it is. I mean, it's still that the woman's from the suspect from last episode for her, but it's like she wouldn't get anything out of this. So, and I'd even thrown out there, I wonder, did Miyuki have a reason for it? But no, it turns out to be a full blown kidnapping. So it is like a situation of we'll just simply have to pay the ransom, but we'll put a tracker in the money, and we'll end up tailing Yusuke, who is asked to be the person who hands off the delivery the next day. Because of the severity of the situation, Reiko gets Kageyama to come along because this, I need your, like, we need to, like, can't have you sitting on the sidelines, like, waiting to figure this out. Like, we need you, like, all hands on deck with this situation. So it does kind of hint and flirt with the idea of maybe there might be something between them in the future, but obviously it's like when she was putting that mask on him and it's on the side of his head and they're kind of close, she's kind of like, all right, just back up. But it's like, whether anything becomes of that or not, who knows if the novels cover that type of situation in the future or not. But either way, I did think it was interesting that the kidnapper had him go to, like, multiple spots. Like, first go to, like, this yakisoba place, then also go get cotton candy. I'm like, what's up with that? It felt, well, obviously you could, and later on tells him to ditch, like, his phone and stuff. So it's like, right, they're trying to see if you, or like making sure, seeing like, okay, you're talking to somebody. It's obviously like you're being followed by the police. So I figured something had to be up with that bunny, because I thought it was interesting that bunny just happened to be there. But then, like, Yusuke immediately takes off, and Doi, who's there as part of this investigation, was like boots on the ground keeping an eye on Yusuke, but then ends up losing him in the train, passes by like twice. Then as he's walking, it's like they're supposed to be crossing paths with each other, but Doi doesn't see him. So I was like, either Yusuke's not there and it's someone else with the backpack, so you're looking for Yusuke, but you can't find Yusuke. But then we find out later on Yusuke was in disguise because he was ordered to. So I was like, man, this is interesting development. Then Kageyama and Reiko sees him at a bridge, and then he immediately drops the bag into the water. So you're like, what's that all about? Like, obviously he's following instructions, but I'm not sure what it is. But, like, Kageyama's like, it doesn't make sense for it to kind of float that way. Like, something's off. And they look into it, turns out, like, it's filled with, like, what is it, like, trash or whatever. It turns out there was a switcheroo at the bathroom. The bunny was one of the suspects being like, hey, take this phone and this device and like listen to us and follow our instructions. They told him to switch to basically leave the got to change of clothes while he was at the station, told him to put the bag in the locker. So you're like, well, you gotta give them credit like that they were able to pull this off. I guess we never saw Teruya as like this like criminal mastermind or anything like that, because I mean he was just after his family's wealth. So you're just like, you didn't really get to know him enough to see him as some. I mean, to be able to kind of manipulate two different families to basically benefit himself, I mean, doesn't completely take criminal genius. You just have to be a deceitful, sucky person. When it is revealed that Teruya, because I was almost trying to give Teruya some bail. I was like, well, he seems like the too obvious of a suspect. So I was like, maybe the whole point is to kind of pin on him. In fact, when we saw it was Teruya, I was like, well, maybe he's being forced in this situation too. It was like, no, he's just a sucky dude that wanted his pay in all of this. So he was trying to get back at the family. So I love the whole him and Kishiro chase. And I just love that whole sequence, especially when like Kishiro's vehicle flips over him. He's like, I said pull over, and it's in slow motion, and his car flips and lands right side up and continues to chase. They're slamming into each other, but Teruya's takeaway was like the car breaks down, and he's like, oh my god, this particular model sucks. And you're like, oh, it's from Kishiro's family dealership. So you're like, oh, that's funny. And so Teruya is caught, but Kageyama figures like there's something else at play here, because he's like, if it was simply about blackmailing the family, they could have just kept going because they still had the blackmail evidence they've been using to get paid up until this point in time. So why would Teruya escalate to kidnapping Miyuki when he's already kind of got a good enough pay revenue? Like, why all of this? But it's like, there's got to be a different motive. And then Kageyama reveals that he had looked it up, and there was a girl that died at the restaurant that the family owns that died 3 years ago because she ended up consuming a meal, or she ended up consuming a dessert that had liquid nitrogen in it. And her dad, Rio, actually worked at the restaurant. And he has motive because maybe he takes his animosity against his family, because it's like the mom, like, she worked him hard to try and come up with a new dessert. And it's like, in fact, we get the flashback of it. Basically, he was doing it at home, and his daughter happened to like see it while he was like distracted talking to his boss, and it sucks. Because it is interesting, because I think they did like take notice of it last episode about the whole meal situation, because I think Kageyama did reference like because we see like there was a plate that had like liquid nitrogen or whatever, kind of as like this like outline to the thing, to the on the outer parts of the dish. I was like, oh, interesting. Like I do feel like I vaguely remember that, and there being comments or Kageyama having some conversation about it. So it's interesting to see that thread pulled. But it turns out Ryu came to work for them under these circumstances, and it sucks in his mind because there she is. In his mind, it's like, you're rubbing it in my face about your daughter growing up, because it's like, because he's saying like, oh, she's such a cruel person. It's like, you pushed me to do all that. And I think he was kind of going to let it go as an accident, but it's like, right, the death of your child at such a young age, you're not thinking clearly, so you need to take that, it's a little, you're blaming yourself, but you're also, you need to make that person suffer because you blame them, because it's like, if it wasn't for you pushing me to be so quick to like, oh, I have to come up with a dish like super quickly, it has to be even better than the one I made previously, and on top of that, you're rushing me to basically make it tomorrow. It's like, I mean, also it's like, if I wasn't on the phone talking to you, I wouldn't have been so distracted, and my daughter wouldn't, like, it's just a sad confluence of situations. It's like no one's fault. It was an accident, but it sucks. But he's taking it out on her, and it's like, yeah, I'm about to take your other daughter from you, especially because if his daughter was still alive, she'd be Miyuki's age. So it's meant to be a 1-for-1. It's almost like, you also like got in front of me being like, oh yeah, I'm so happy about my daughter being able to grow up. I don't think she meant anything by it because she probably wasn't even thinking at the time. It's just, oh my God, I'm in this happy moment, and it was insensitive on her part, but she probably it didn't even clock in her mind because she's so, oh, my daughter is getting married. Dad's so happy. I'm so glad she grew up. Like, I don't think she realized the insensitivity of her words, but that's what kind of sparked all this. And I think he's basically been planning this kidnapping for the past month, especially the family kind of, I think with the turmoil the family was kind of going through at that time, even though it was all swept under the rug. I wonder, was he debating going after Yuri in that time frame because he waited? Because it was like around the time Yuri's recovering and about to be released from the hospital. But then it's like, no, I'm gonna get Miyuki. Like I said, it's probably just a month's worth of planning. And once again, Teruya is just a scumbag that's, oh, I'm getting a bigger pay cut. But for Rio, it was just about revenge. He just knew that this bigger pay cut will motivate Teruya to help him. Because I think Teruya was already doing the blackmail stuff, maybe. Or maybe it was Rio from the beginning. I'd assume it was Teruya. Because like the blackmail started like 10 days ago at that time. So I don't know who was responsible for that. To escalate to this point, because the kidnapping was on Ryu, whereas like Teruya was just, like I said, he was benefiting. So I feel like Ryu probably, I think Ryo ended up jumping onto Teruya's scheme and used it to his advantage to do the way he's doing. But once again, even if he wasn't, it doesn't have any intentions of killing Miyuki, he still went along with everything. So it makes you wonder, did he know the end result plan was to kill Miyuki? But I mean, upon discovering this, Kageyama and Reiko went to Ryo's place, but he wasn't there. And obviously, she's so frustrated because it's like, oh my God, something had happened to Miyuki, especially because her family's so close to theirs. And it's like, there's an innocent little girl that might die. But Kageyama was like, yo, you need to focus. Don't panic. He's like, are you a moron? Don't panic. Because if you lose your cool and composure in this moment, who else is going to save Miyuki? So it's like, right, think back on everything, what could there be a detail that you missed? And it's like during the ransom video, she heard the sound of a bird. They played it again. Kageyama knows where it is. It's like this particular region is where you probably find that bird. And then Reiko remembers because she sees a picture of Ryo with his daughter in front of like a cabin, but like the family has a villa that they basically send their workers to sometimes. So it's like, this is the perfect place. And just, Ryo just, doing what he's doing. Like you are hoping that maybe something would stop him from doing what he was doing. But once again, this guy is so driven by grief. Once again, does not make it okay, but it's just understanding how he got to where he is. And it did seem like, when Miyuki was crying, he did kind of hear like some echo of his daughter calling him dad. And it froze him enough to give Reiko time to get there. And luckily her and Kageyama were able to protect Miyuki. But he ends up attacking Reiko, because she's defending herself like against him, but gets hurt. And Kageyama steps in and kind of goes full badass, like defending with a baton, even kind of pulling out some like palm strikes. It's actually really dope, especially against this guy who has an axe. And he started bending the baton from the axe strikes. And luckily, Reiko got him with the nitroglycerin, kind of distracted enough for Kageyama to knock him out. And I love that when Kyoshiro gets there, Kageyama puts a mask on and just kind of like, hey, sure, and walks away. And it's almost like, wait, what? So you're not going to explain that? Are you going to just assume he was probably just going to be like, oh, he's a cop from our precinct or whatever who just happened to be here and he was there at the time, so probably brushed that off. So still no connection or correlation between Reiko, who she really is from the Hosho family, but also like that's her butler Kageyama. So that is the resolution to all this. And like I said, we never got any resolution on, was that the mom being intentionally insensitive? Like I said, I'm going to assume she didn't mean anything by it. She just probably like did not remember, because at that point it had been like 3 years, which is, once again, is kind of a shame. But it's like there's so much going on in the world and you're focusing on the good in life that you just didn't think much of like your comments having such a like digging so deep and cutting so deep for this guy. But yeah, I did love the little back and forth between Kageyama and Reiko at the end of it all, where it's like, hey, she's like, I wish I could have been a little more elegant with my save when it came to Miyuki, and Kageyama's like, oh, you're like Shaketopia. She's like, yeah, you can read my mind. It's like, yeah, like that was like her childhood hero growing up. So it's like, yeah, I wish I was a little more elegant. It was a little sloppy. I got a little banged up, but the end result is the end result. We also ended up finding out one of the other reasons why Reiko became a cop is when she was younger, like some guy just was so willing to kidnap her dog, which I was like, oh, that's interesting. There's no correlation, but like the example I'm thinking of is like, because a similar thing kind of happened to like Lady Gaga's dolls. Like her dog walker, I believe, was shot when someone was like trying to like take her dogs. I mean, they probably were like, hey, this is the Hoshio family, so like I could probably take this dog and for a ransom. But luckily a detective was nearby and knocked him out. And obviously it gave her Shaketopia vibes, especially because she's at around that age that she fell in love with the show. And so even Kageyama's like, oh, is that what this made you decide to be a detective? She's like, oh, no, maybe. It seems like it's a combination of that moment and Shaketopia being like, hey, these people who are seekers of justice and trying to fight evil, all that played a role, I think, in her sense of justice and wanting to do right. But then like she's like, oh yeah, I'm hungry, let's go get something to eat. And Kageyama's like, oh, I know a great place. It's like Chinese noodles, but like the sauce like they use for it is very special. No one can figure it out. But then Reiko's like, oh no, maybe. Do you think if I my tongue will be sensitive enough to be able to decipher what this secret sauce is? And he's like, I don't know, maybe. But it's like, yeah, dinner is best served. And she's like, right, after a case is solved, or it's the best time to have dinner is like before the end of a case or something like that, going back to that line of dialogue. And that's like our last thing in the episode. So this was just kind of a fun mystery series. All in all, it's just very case by case basis situation, while getting a little bit of like little rapport between the different characters, but like not too much. But we kind of build out these characters a little bit, but it is just more so like the case by case thing. I'm curious, like the structure of the novels of like. Once again, I'm sure the anime is a more condensed version of it, so I'm curious, like, do the novels go into some of the characters a little bit more? Do we learn a little bit more about... Because Kageyama continues to be an enigma, and maybe it's like later parts of the novel let you explore that more. And this is where we kind of get into the conversation of how much does this cover? So I looked it up, because I've talked about this repeatedly. In totality, when it comes to this series, there's 5 novels. The original novel ran for 3 volumes from 2010 to 12, and then... there was a sequel novel from 2021 or 2022 to 2024, and that only ran for 2 volumes. So I did Google, first and foremost, will there be a second season of the show? That's unclear. Obviously, like the episode just dropped like last night at the time of me recording this, so it's unclear. I mean, plenty of animes do not wrap up never finishing the original source material, whether it's a light novel or a manga, whatever the case may be. So there's a pretty good chance this might be all that we get. But at least at the time of me recording this, there has been no decision. But it feels like it's one of those things where this probably will be the end. But I also looked it up because I was curious, like how much of the novels this covered. I Googled it, and obviously, when you Google stuff, there's like the AI results sometimes, or like the first results, like an AI overview is kind of the first thing. So do take a lot of this grain of salt, because I Googled it twice and worded things differently and got 2 different results. One result said that basically this whole season of the anime covers, it basically was kind of like if this, then if X is true, Y is true. But basically it's like, because of the first case being the first and a half episode, is like, therefore the entire first season must be the first novel adapted. But then I got a different result saying, no, this anime covers the first 2 novels, so that leaves at least 1 to 2 novels not adapted. But like I said, that would only include the original series. I don't know if that includes that definitely doesn't include the sequel 2 volumes of the novel. So it's like, that's why I'm saying, like, take all that information with a grain of salt. Like, if you have read the books just on off chance, I'd love to know your perspective on it. Like, oh, have you read the novels, and how, like, does the anime compare, like, pacing wise, and how much does it cover? But I know we don't have the total story, I would assume. And so, like I said, you probably, to get the full story, you have to read the novels to get that clarity. But that's why I want to kind of be like, yeah. So I didn't walk away with a definitive answer, where sometimes I feel like sometimes I'm able to. This one, I don't know how much this ended up covering, so I just kind of want to include that information as well, because people might be like, oh well, if I do want to read the novels, I am curious, like, how much of the novels got covered. So even though I don't have a definitive answer, I do feel like there's still plenty more for adaptation. Like I said, whether it is one or whether it is 2 more volumes of the original novel, there still is also the sequel novels as well that can be adapted. So either way, there's still more source material to pull from, but whether we'll get an anime adaptation of it, like I said, at this point is unclear. No decision that's definitively be made. But like I said, I get the feeling there'll probably be a one and done. I hope I'm wrong. I'd love to get more time with these characters. Maybe, like I said, depending on how the novels are structured, maybe as things progress, you learn a little bit more about Kageyama and explore the him and Reiko dynamic, the master-servant relationship, but also maybe it grows into something more. Obviously, Reiko growing as a detective as well, maybe not having to rely on Kageyama as much. And we got a little bit of this episode, but still, So I'd be curious to see. Like I said, fingers crossed, hoping for more. But we'll have to wait and keep an eye on things to kind of see one way or the other. But yeah, I've run my mouth off long enough. If this is a one and done, I'd like to, thank everyone involved, the original creator of the novels, as well as the animators and writers for the anime and directors for the anime adaptation. This is, like I said, it was just kind of a fun series. Once again, I'm always a fan of a good whodunit, so I'm always kind of like trying to figure the mystery out along the way, and it's just kind of been a fun time, despite the nature of, like, murder not being a fun thing. But once again, solving crimes, just a big fan of that. So, but yeah, now I've done running my mouth. To the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.